and welcome back to our last lecture of this semester. So, yes. Monty, where are you?
I am back here.
Monty? Oh, he's right here. Hey, Monty, say hi.
Hello.
Yeah. And he's back. All right, so, yeah, let's talk about the special senses, which we get into taste and why you may have heard some interesting fables about taste. I know I did until I got re-educated in anatomy and physiology myself. So to recap, basically we've got the special senses and their respective organs. You got smell, which is the olfactory organ, which is literally this tiny yellow olfactory bulb up your nose. Taste for taste buds. Hearing and equilibrium for the ears. And then, of course, sight with our eyes. So we're going to go into and kind of touch on these a little bit each. I think it's really cool. So, smell. So literally, we have a patch of yellowish tissue the size of a quarter up our nose, and that's the only thing that lets us smell. Now, smell and taste, if you look at evolutionary biology, they were actually together at one point, especially in reptiles. Which is like Monty right here, the reason he flicks his tongue and why his tongue is forked is because his sense of smell is kind of still together, and he doesn't really have taste, which is probably a good thing considering he eats dead animals. I mean, they can't taste good, I have to say. Right, Monty? Yeah, he doesn't have taste. So, but he does have smell, and his olfactory bulb is known as the Jacobson's organ. And the reason why his tongue is forked, why snakes' tongues are forked, or other lizards as well, is because that shape actually captures molecules in between very easily, better than our flat tongues. And then happens is when he brings it in, the tongue accidentally comes up and rubs up against his olfactory bulb, which is known as the Jacobson's organ. And that's how snakes smell what's in the air. Now, can they smell fear? No, because he's dumb. Listen, I'm telling you, his brain's the size of a pea. I do have a snake brain preserved in the lab, I'd show you. But, so, yeah. So that's why, smell and taste are very much attached, especially in us. If we smell something, we can imagine tasting it. Like if you smell somebody cooking steaks, you're going, steaks. And it's the same thing with, going, or unfortunately, if there's a bad smell, you can also sit there and taste it and it feels like it's in your mouth and you're going, yeah. So that's why it's very much these two senses are related. And they've just pretty much started splitting apart from each other in us mammals, which is why sometimes we taste what we smell and we smell what we taste. Yeah. So anyway, which can be good and bad. Anyway, so those are your olfactory receptor cells. They are bipolar neurons surrounded by columnar epithelial cells. And the neurons have these knobs at the distal ends with dendrites. Here we are. And with covered in hair-like cilia. So these are the fibers right here. And the chemicals stimulate these cells, but they have to dissolve first in fluids. So we're actually not smelling entirely what's in the air while it's dry. It actually, again, this is why we have a lot of mucus up in here, is because it has to dissolve in liquids first. So therefore it has to dissolve for these guys to even be stimulated. And then it gets sent to our brain. And we've got basically over 400 types of olfactory membrane receptors, which is insane to think about. And there's actually people out there, there's taste testers and smell testers that actually are paid big bucks to sit there and try to figure out different smells out of things and tastes, because that brings us back to culinary, and it actually brings us into a lot of, hold on, brain just died. Also brings us into perfumes, which is a huge industry, and what smells nice to humans and what doesn't smell nice to humans, because, we don't want to smell like snake pee. I honestly have, like I said in the last lecture, I have smelled so many smells at being a zookeeper, and I'm going to have to say the most offensive odors definitely up there have to be snake, urine, and they also do something called skunking, where they freak out and they'll skunk you instead of biting you, which is, it smells like it sounds. And then there's cat urine. I'm sorry, out of the two, I'm just saying, you guys stink. Which is why Monty gets a bath. Anyway, not all the time, but he gets a bath. Because this idiot will sit in his own you-know-what. Anyway. That's why Mommy has to clean up after him. Anyway, so yeah, we smell really good. And it's interesting, actually, how much we actually do smell. You know, you look at dogs like, you know, bloodhounds, they can smell way more than we can. I mean, all dogs can. That's probably why they go up to each other's crotches and have a good sniff to get to know each other. We thankfully don't do that. That'd be really weird. Anyway, it's like, how you doing, Bob? Smelly info travels through the olfactory receptory cells into the olfactory bulbs and down our olfactory tracts, and then it goes to the limbic system, and our limbic system is basically where it's interpreted. But the limbic system also deals with emotions, which is why some smells trigger emotions. Like, for instance, I can't stand the smell of hot white vinegar, or hot even apple cider vinegar. Oh. Because unfortunately I was tortured with it by my biological father. He had this thing called the concoction, and he'd try to feed me every time I was sick, and it was this bizarre, literally it was a concoction. It didn't make anybody feel better. It just made you want to vomit. It was apple cider vinegar mixed in with coffee, mixed in with tea, mixed in with honey. And I think that's everything, but don't quote me because, oh God, it was horrifying. And it was supposed to fix what ails you. And he'd try to, if my mom wasn't home, he'd try to force that down my throat if I was sick. And it was... And to this day, if I smell like, you know, vinegar hot, I can't do it. I can't. Nope. I will nope out of there so fast. Not a fan of vinegar because of that. And so, as you can see, it could be good things, it can be bad things. Like, there's some smells, like, I love the smell of lilacs. I love them so much, I will shove lilacs up my nose and go, because I love the smell of lilacs. But, you know, and then I can't stand the smell of vinegar because I was tortured with it. So anyway, it's kind of weird how that works. So smells actually can trigger memories, which is, you know, there's some aromatherapy and whatnot like that. So, you know, some smells make you go, ah. Like books, you know, when you get a good book. I don't know what it is. It's like me and my husband were talking about this on our anniversary last weekend. We went out and we went to Barnes & Noble. Woo! Because we're wild. No, we're not that wild. And we went into Barnes & Noble and we bought a bunch of books and we were sitting there reading the books and we were sniffing the books because I don't know what it is about books, but they smell good. So anyway. Actually, funny thing, humans are actually very fine-tuned to the smells of dirt. I know this sounds weird, but bear with me. There's a reason actually why, if you're a gardener and you like to go play in the garden and you like to, you know, turning dirt is actually very therapeutic for us because we actually can detect, and this is weird, we detect the microbes in the soil, the scent that they give off. And the reason is because we're so finely tuned to it because we're an agricultural species. In other words, humans are actually instinctively drawn to dirt that is good and healthy and has the microbes that are good and healthy for growing food and crops in. So because we've actually figured out agriculture and whatnot, we've actually over time become attuned to the microbes that we need in the dirt. So that's why dirt actually, you know, good healthy dirt smells really good to us. So if you're one of those people that likes to go out in the garden and you're, you know, digging up the dirt and everything like that, and it smells really good to you and really soothing, yeah, that's an actual evolutionary trait of humans. We can smell good dirt. Isn't that weird? Anyway, now, again, the nose blind, like I said in the last lecture, is a thing. So olfactory impulses is a result when odorant molecule stimulates a distinct set, that's supposed to be set, of receptor cells. Right here, it's supposed to be set. I need to go and fix that. Olfaction undergoes rapid sensory adaptation. Hi, what you doing? Cool. And basically, the intensity of an odor drops about 50% within a second following the stimulation. So even though you're getting blasted with something very smelly and it's really offensive to your nose, yeah, your brain actually goes, whoa, and tones it down about 50%. So that way, and it will keep toning it down until your nose blind. Olfactory receptors are often damaged by environmental factors, so they're replaced by a pool of stem cells so you can keep smelling. So yeah, we actually go through a lot of these. Unfortunately, though, if you get those stem cells damaged, you no more smell. I should say that more educational way. But basically what happens, you lose your sense of scent. And which is not cool. I actually had a friend that got shot up the nose with a BB gun. I was not there for that. That was, I met them in college. This is way after it happened, and he had no sense of smell because his stem cells got obliterated when a BB went up his nose. So, FYI, don't sniff BBs, especially if they're coming out of a BB gun. So, just FYI. Right, Monty? So, anyway. But other animals have, of course, more intense senses of smell, like, of course, dogs and, cats too, which is why cats get upset at stronger smells in your house. For instance, there's actually stuff you can put in. We've actually replicated pheromones to calm them down, which really works when you're introducing cats to new environments, and I used to use it all the time. I used it when I got these 3 goober butts when I saved them from being dumped in my school. I should show them to you sometime. They're cute. Anyway, if you're into cats. But long story short, speaking of cats, the cat food just dumped. So basically what's going on is, they have a lot more receptors than we do. They also have cooler adaptations like bloodhounds. The reason they have all those folds on their face is because it actually traps scents in there so they can actually kind of store a scent for later to keep smelling it. So it's actually makes you wonder what information they're getting out of their smelly world, because dogs actually see more with their nose than they actually do their own eyes, which is why blind dogs usually can get around okay-ish. Because they're usually using their nose to see everything. So it's kind of interesting. Kind of wonder what they sniff. Or maybe not, because they also like to sniff poo. Weird. Anyway, so your taste receptors are your taste buds, and they're made up of taste cells and supporting cells. And so basically what we have on our tongue right here is we have a taste pore, and inside you have, again, these little hairs, and again we have to wait for it to dissolve in liquid. So gee, what's in our mouth? Saliva. And guess what? Whenever we eat, it dissolves, and then our taste receptors go into work. And they have a basal cell, and here's the afferent nerve coming out, and the connective tissue. So that's basically what these guys are. And these, again, dissolves in water, just like our smell. Again, not very, mechanically different. Again, because, like I said, in mammals, these two senses have finally split, whereas Monty here, he doesn't even have taste, which you're probably grateful for. Anyway, so that triggers impulses to the brain, and you taste. Now, a long time ago, or not so long ago, it depends on what you've been reading somewhere, there's five primary taste sensations. We finally discovered the 5th by talking to the Japanese, and that's actually why it's a Japanese word. It's sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, which is, usually what we taste out of a lot of Asian culture foods, that very savory taste. Is umami. And interestingly enough, these are actually spread out equally all over your tongue, or there's more around your edges. Now, each one of these 5 is particularly sensitive to a certain group of chemicals. Various taste sensations derive from the stimulation of more and more of these cells. Now, it used to be said that, we had these different taste receptors in different parts of our tongue. They're not. They're equally distributed across your tongue. It's, again, like I was talking about in the last lecture that referred pain. Same thing's going on here. It just feels like you've got more salt receptors on the tip and sides of your tongue. Just like it feels like you've got more sweet receptors there, or sour on the sides of your tongue because you can feel it there, or bitter in the back of your mouth because that's kind of where it lingers. But in reality, you actually have them all equally distributed. They're not in each section like right here. That's why I put a big red thingy through it, because that's not how it works. It's not how it works. So if you thought that's how your tasting worked, guess what? Yeah, no, It's actually equally distributed all over your tongue. So, which is interesting. And again, there are people that literally do nothing but taste to get out all the flavors and whatnot that actually are a part of, making candies, making all sorts of different things. So there are taste testers. There's still official taste testers, and it has nothing to do with poison anymore. It has everything to do with trying to break things down. We even have electronic tongues. That's also used in the food industry to try and figure out what combinations would be palatable for humans without having to put a human in the way and go, here, eat this gook. And you go, So it's kind of interesting. So we do actually have electronic noses, and we kind of are working electronic tongues. But still, some things you can't get away from using humans, and boy, do they get paid for it. So anyway, the taste pathways run into the brain through the facial, glossopharyngeal, and vagus nerves, and it's carried to our medulla oblongata that ascends to the thalamus and then to the gustatory cortex in the parietal lobes. So that way you can go or bleh, depending on, what's going on. What do you think, Monty? Yep. Now, hearing is cool. I really enjoy the anatomy of the ear, and I just think it's kind of cool. So you've got your outer ear, and then your middle ear, and then your inner ear. So we're going to talk about the outer and the middle here first. So the outer, of course, is the auricle, which is called the pinna, right here, and the ear canal, which is called the external acoustus meatus. And then you've got a membrane, and that is called the tympanic membrane. This is basically where we're taking vibrations, and the reason your ear is the way it's shaped is so we can collect hearing. It looks like a dish for a reason. Monty, on the other hand, he has no ears. He doesn't even have ear holes. Snakes can't hear. That's right. You can scream all you want at Monty. He will not hear a thing you said because he doesn't have any. He physically does not have ears. Now you're like, but what about vibrations? Yeah, he can't feel the vibrations of me talking right now. He can feel the vibrations of like the ground. If I put him on the ground and I walked around him, he would feel that. So he does feel vibrations through the ground or whatever he's sitting on or whatnot. I don't even know if he can hear my heartbeat or feel my heartbeat. I'm not sure if he's that sensitive. But anyway, that's why snakes freak out. They can't hear you at all. So you can scream and scream and scream and scream at a snake, and they won't know at all whatsoever. So anyway, but they can't feel through the air. Unless it's like a concussive burst or something like that. Then everybody can feel that. Anyway, getting back to the tympanic membrane. So basically what's happening is, sound waves are coming in and it vibrates the eardrum or the tympanic membrane. And that's connected onto the middle ear by these three really cool, tiniest bones in your body. And they are the coolest looking things. I've got three of them preserved at the lab. Come by sometime fall semester if you want to look at them. Or if you're taking 169 with me for fall semester, that's cool too. If not, no worries. Anyway, so we got the malleus, which literally, they're named exactly after what they look like. The malleus does look exactly like a hammer. The incus or anvil is basically what the malleus wax on. And then it attaches to the inner ear right here, the auditory right here, the cochlear, and that is the stapes. And it looks exactly like a stirrup off a saddle on an English horse setup. More like that than the Western. Anyway, but for those of you that know the difference between Western and English riding gear. So, but basically what that does, what these three bones do is actually amplify the waves that are coming into the ear, vibrating the eardrum, and then it amplifies it. So that way it can go in and vibrate the cochlear area in your brain. Now not in your brain, your inner ear. This is your inner ear. Now, for those of you that have ever had issues with, for instance, infections, ear infections, like my son, he had them constantly. We had to put a tube in his ear. The reason being for that is this. He basically, you see how it dumps down, the auditory tube dumps down right here? That's because any fluids that get in will just automatically flood down this way and drain out naturally. That's the way it should be. However, some people, and especially in children, because it actually starts flat. So it's actually flat right here and then dumps down. And unfortunately, what that does is that traps liquids right here. And that's where the ear infections are. And if you've ever had those ear infections, you probably know what I'm talking about. So what happens is this place is flat and then it dumps down. And because it's too flat, it doesn't nicely, it's supposed to drain away down. And as kids get older, it actually will, grow into where this drops. So that way it drains, which is why a lot of kids, usually as they grow up or grow older, we don't get those ear infections anymore because of that. Because now it's our heads are adjusted and grown into, and it drops down and everything drains out the way it should. But in kids, it's actually rather straight and traps that liquid right there instead of draining down. And that's why we have to put sometimes little tubes in, so that way the liquid can drain back out the ear this way and not build up, and make a wonderful place for bacteria to have a party and then give you an earache. So that's basically, if you've ever had, tubes put in your ears or whatnot, that's what was happening. Or known of people getting tubes in their ears. Like Wesley, he had ear infection after ear infection after ear infection. And we finally just said, put in the tubes. They put in the tubes and it worked great. And we didn't have any problems, and now we still don't have any problems. And his ear tubes popped out years ago. After a while, the body just pops them out, and the eardrum repairs. It's actually really cool. So, and unfortunately, though, that means some people have to go in and get more tubes put in. So if you're one of the people that are eternally suffering and have to keep getting tubes put in, I'm sorry. But, yeah. So that's basically the secret of why we have put ear tubes in, is because, unfortunately, with the liquids are supposed to drain down nicely that way. Sometimes this is too straight and it all hangs out right here, and you get a bit bacteria happy land. So, which is pretty crazy. So anyway, and it hurts. And yeah, so fun things, crazy things. Now the inner ear is just really neat. The inner ear is a very complex system of labyrinths. You've got the bony labyrinth with the osseous labyrinth, or the membranous labyrinth. And basically the bony canal is in the temporal bone and it's filled with perilymph fluid. And then there's the tube within this, and it's filled with endolymph fluid. So we've got two different types of fluids running around in here. And inside these, so we've got these semicircular ducts right here. And then we've got the cochlear right here. And again, we've got this vestibular cochlear nerve that comes out of these two. And these two are basically responsible for your hearing, especially the cochlear, because that's where all the sound was getting. So remember, the stapes is right up against that, and that's where it amplifies the wave, turns it into here, and it moves the hairs inside the cochlear, and then that's how we get sound. But how do we get equilibrium? Well, that's with these guys and the cochlear right here. Inside of these guys is all these again, very, very delicate hairs, and depending on which way you float your head, that lets you know is which way these hairs are going in the fluid, and that lets you know what is up and what is down. Or unfortunately, if you're dizzy, these guys are getting, they're getting wacky feedback, which is not cool. And nobody likes that when you're old. When you're young and you like to spin in place constantly and then fall over dizzy, yeah, it's a lot of fun. But can I do that now? No. Bothers the snot out of me. I used to make myself dizzy all the time. It was like fun as heck. Before the internet. Before there was the internet. But anyway, so depending on which way the hairs actually flow and the liquid inside these tubes gives you your equilibrium. And some people that really messes up. Like, for instance, unfortunately, my husband has major issues with this, which is why he can't take roller coasters. honestly. And he does have sometimes where he just has dizzy attacks, and he has to actually do, there's like a series of neck exercises he has to do to try and reset all of this. You can actually look that up. If you do have bouts of dizziness, there are exercises you can do with your head that usually helps reset this. It doesn't always work, but it does more often than not. So sometimes when you go into the doctor and say, I'm really, really dizzy all the time, they'll tell you to do these exercises. It kind of resets that. Anyway, so 3 parts of the labyrinth. So the cochlear functions in hearing. You got your semicircular canals and functions in dynamic equilibrium, and the vestibule, which functions in static equilibrium. So how the heck does that work? So the difference between static equilibrium and dynamic equilibrium. So static basically helps you maintain the position of your head relatively to the force of gravity. So you know your head's up and your bottom half of your body is down. And the macular receptors in the saccule and utricle. So these two basically right here, bam and bam, are the two that are basically telling you head up, feet down. So you know where your head's up and your feet are down. And that's all good. Then you've got your dynamic equilibrium, which is basically maintaining the body position, your head, and sudden movement type rotation. So deceleration or acceleration. This is what gives you, when you're looking around like that, fun stuff like that. And the cristae receptors within the ampulla of semicircular ducts. So these are the things that give you dynamic equilibrium. So that way you can basically, go, oh, I can move forward, I can move backwards. You get the sensation when you're in the car, you move forward, you move backwards, which is kind of weird when you first start driving. So all the particles are at rest. There's no motion between reactants and products, basically. Static lets you know what's going on. Is your head up, or, where you are in context to gravity, which can get messed with when you're going into microgravity. That's why they used to call it the vomit comet, because they used to have the shuttle, one of the shuttles, which was the Enterprise, on the back of a jetliner, and they used to go up in that, and then they drop. They just literally fly up and then pause and then let the plane drop, literally, and then take off again and go up and then let the plane drop. And when you did that, it simulates microgravity for a few minutes. And a lot of people used to lose their lunches, so NASA affectionately named it the Vomit Comet. So, anyway, eyeballs! These are just cool. If we had an actual lab, I would definitely be inviting you and giving you an eye to dissect, because I just think they're neat. To me, anyway. So anyway, you got your muscles so you can move your eyeball around. The white part is called the sclera. You got your iris, which is basically for, focusing the light into your lens. You got your cornea. The lens, interestingly enough, it is not just a lens. It's so funny, because a lot of the people I have, when I give them, a sheep eye to dissect, and they dissect the sheep eye, they pop out the lens and go, what is this grape? It is literally grape-shaped. It should be nice and round. This picture actually is a terrible picture. This should be nice and round. The rounder it is, the better your eyesight is. The more it elongates is actually where we need to go talk to your doctor and actually get glasses. I actually picked my optometrist brains so that way he could tell me a lot of different things that I can tell you now in this class. So actually, the lens here should be more circular than it is round. But it's so funny, like I said, they pop them out and go, what's this grape-looking thing? Oh, that's the lens, guys. Oh. So anyway, you got the vitreous body, which is filled with the vitreous humor, which is that liquid, which, like I said, you can get the floaters, which are just proteins that got dislodged or whatnot, and are floating around, and unfortunately, the back part of your body, and your optic nerves and your cones and rods, which we'll get into in a minute. They're really, really neat looking nerves. So again, you got the ligaments. We can actually go in and fix those ligaments these days. Heck, we can go in and put things in the cornea to fix things. It's amazing what we can do these days. Optical surgery is just absolutely amazing to me. And then you got your blind spot. There's a blind spot where your optic nerve actually goes in and behind your eye. We do have also a place where we kind of focus on in the back of our eye called the macula lutea, and it's a central depression. It's right here. So that's basically where a lot of our stuff is. So that way we can pick up the sensories right there, and then it goes down here. And we have an actual optic disc, which is called the blind spot. Now, when they go in and you go to an optometrist and they, blow into your eye and whatnot, it's actually kind of interesting. They do that poof thing and it makes you go, and then your eye dilates so they can get a really cool picture of the back of your eye so they can check check everything in the back there and make sure everything's looking good. All the blood vessels are looking nice and healthy and whatnot, because blood vessel deterioration usually means, something big's going on back there. So do go to an eye doctor. It helps. I need to actually make an appointment with mine. I haven't seen him in a minute. Anyway, so the eye has 3 distinct layers. You got your outer tunic, which is also known as your fibrous, which is your the whites of your eyes, the sclera and your cornea right here. Your vascular tunic, which is the iris, the ciliary body, and the chyroid. Then your nervous tunic, which is the pigmented layer, and the neural layer. Basically, it's your retina. So that's when they're talking about your retina. That's it. Pretty neat. So now we get things called rods and cones, which are really neat. So at the back, like I said, we actually see everything upside down. And then our brain makes it right side up. Why? It's just how light works. And if you've ever messed with, different types of lenses and whatnot, and learn about camera stuff, that's basically what's going on here. Basically what happens when you look through, it flips the image. And then actually, interestingly enough, no, the image doesn't show up on the back. It's just kind of showing how your sensors pick it up. And then it goes into your brain, and your brain actually flips it right side up. Your brain actually edits a lot of your vision. Like, for instance, if you're jerking your head around like this, and the reason we don't get seasick or camera sick, motion sickness, is because our brain actually edits it and kind of staggers the vision. So it actually blacks out every so often, and it's actually real quick, so we don't even notice it. So that way we don't get motion sick from just yoinking our head when, somebody drops something, like the cats when they knocked half the things off my desk and I went, and that was, so you don't get motion sick from that. Unlike somebody with, doing a dodgy job with camera editing. Like the entirety of why my husband couldn't watch the Blair Witch Project, because that entire movie made him so motion sick because of all the cameras running around. So we don't do that. Our brain actually edits our vision, which is really cool. So we got the rods and the cones. Now, fun things is the cones actually see color. So the cones will pick up on red, green, and blue. And the rods actually pick up on black and white. They're actually more for depth perception. So therefore, we know how far I am from the camera, which is right here. So when I go to pick something up, I know where it is. That is what the rod's job is. They give you depth perception and some low light visibility too. We are rather even on our cones and rods. Now, other animals, on the other hand, Monty can only see in black and white, so he only has rods, and even then his rods are really bad. Snakes can only see movement. Now my cats, on the other hand, cats only have, they actually have more rods than they do cones. So do cats see color? Sort of. It's really muted, but this is why cats have such amazing low light abilities. They can't see in pitch black, but they can see in low light really, really well because they have mostly rods. And they have amazing depth perception, which is why they can make those amazing jumps and whatnot, and all their little feline acrobatics. Dogs are kind of in between us and cats. They have more rods than cones, but they do have color. It's very, very, very muted. Same thing with horses. So they have a bit more rods because, again, they're working on more perception or distance, because that gives them a better way to catch their prey. Back when dogs used to actually catch prey, not wait for the human near the bull. And birds, on the other hand, so if you flip over to the bird land, they have way more cones than we do. They have way more cones, and they actually see colors we can't see. So imagine colors you can't imagine, and birds have it. Now, how do we know that? Because animal behaviorists have done some pretty wacky things to birds to try and figure out bird brains. And there's a lot of things to figure out in bird brains. But yeah, we've actually wired birds' brains up to computers. So yeah, we've been rather invasive with a lot of different birds, trying to figure out why they sing songs, why they, what they see, why they see what they see. So yeah, birds actually can see a lot more color than we do. And I don't know why one of my cats is singing. I've got one there, and it's Sunny. Sunny, what's your problem? It's because I'm giving away the secrets of cat eyes? He doesn't know. Anyway, so there you go. I just gave you also, a lot of aquatic creatures can see colors we can't see. Like, for instance, my favorite, the mantis shrimp, can actually see 9 more colors than we can see. I don't know. Because our brains can't see them. Again, just like what I was talking about last time, the left half sees out the right eyeball, and the right half of your brain sees out the left eyeball, and Sonny's got the zoomies. He just ran on by. I don't know what causes the zoomies in cats. I think it's the zoomies. Oh, now his brother's joining him. Anyway, I better finish up before all you see is 2 cats screaming around. So anyway, so again, where it goes in the brain to tell you what's going on. So the retina again comes up the optic nerve, goes through the temporal lobe, then goes here to tell us where, goes into the lateral nucleus, and goes into the back, which is our visual cortex, which tells us the what and the how. Or sometimes we have to put together the how in the parietal lobe when we're sitting there going, now, how did they do that? You know, if you ever walked in on your pets and they've done something naughty and you're like, and how did you do that? Used to do that at the zoo all the time because, we had to clean their houses twice a day. We kept it very, very clean in that zoo, and much cleaner than several zoos I've ever seen. But I do not know how the primates used to get things. Their poop upside down on the platforms. I don't know how they do this. It still to this day. I'm pretty sure monkeys break the laws of physics. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so there you go. If you want a more in-detailed view, it's not showing it. We've got right here, crash course on eyes. Anybody else? No? Okay. So, we're at the end. So thank you so much for being my students. And like I said, I'm not going to not be in communication with you here from here on out. I'm just going to be like, no more lectures. So, I hope you enjoyed my lectures. I hope they made a lot of sense. I hope you enjoyed Monty here with us during these lectures. Right, Monty?
Yes, I will miss them.
So, I will talk to you later. But still, thank you so much for joining my class and being with me in the summer. And I hope I have illuminated you on the coolness of anatomy and physiology. And that I hope you go forth with this information and do awesome things. Because you are all awesome people. So, thank you so much, and I'll see you later. Bye.